You're watching Bandofla. My name is Fevzi Hussein, and today we are recording an episode dedicated to International Women's Day. And I have three amazing women to join me in discussion for this occasion. In your top left-hand corner, I have a mother and daughter. I have Canan, Nuri, and Suzanne Nuri Nixon. Now, Suzanne is the mayor of Wymondham. And I'm glad I said that right. I think last time you was on the show, I said Wymondham, which I think is how they pronounce it in America. But Sue's the mayor of Wymondham. She's also the town and district councillor and the South Norfolk district councillor. Canan Nuri is a librarian, writer and activist, and a former co-presenter of Drive Time Radio on London Turkish Radio, which sadly doesn't exist anymore. In the bottom row of your screen, I'm delighted to be joined for her debut on Bandofla is Emel Djevdet. Emel is a lawyer and the former chair of human rights group Embargoed. So a really warm welcome to you all, ladies. Right. So I guess where I want to start the show today, there's so many issues that we can talk about for International Women's Day, but I think I want to touch on role models and really speaking, finding out who your role, given it's International Women's Day, who your role models are and why you've chosen that person. So I'm going to choose Emel first.
I'm so glad you went for me because I've got a really cheesy answer, and it's actually my mum. So my mum was raised in the UK, but she was raised in quite a traditional way. And I have watched her kind of since having kids, training and going back to work. I have seen her kind of bloom in herself and find a confidence that she wasn't given as a child. And it's an inspiration, and she does it with such kind of love and dedication to the people she loves and with such passion that I have to say her, to be honest.
That's fair enough, Emel. I think that if we asked that question to millions of women, it wouldn't surprise me if a big chunk of them gave the same answer. I'm wondering if Suzanne and Canan have a different answer. Sue, yourself?
Yeah, I hear what Emel is saying, and I can relate a lot to the sort of things you've mentioned. I sort of look at it more at women in politics that I admire. It's not just one person. It ranges from Greta Thunberg in Sweden, the activist, to people like Jess Phillips, who, even though is in the Labour Party, I admire hugely. And then obviously Daisy Cooper, who's from the Lib Dems, which is our party, and also Kamala Harris. I read her The Truths We Hold book while I was on holiday last year. It was before the election, and I just thought, oh my goodness, the Americans surely have to vote for this inspirational woman, and for them to do what they did, I cannot comprehend it. But at the end of the day, it's women that break down barriers and try to sort of make the status quo sort of a bit more equal, and I really admire that, the guts it takes to do something like that. So those are the women I kind of, really admire.
Okay, some quick, pretty big power hitters there in terms of role models. Has she left any for you, Canan?
I was really hoping you weren't going to say who I picked out, and you didn't. So I'm glad.
Go on then.
And Emma, I mean, you kind of did steal mine, because I was going to say my mum, Suzanne.
Thank you.
I'm not just saying that because she's sitting next to me. But yeah, I think you've been a trailblazer in your life, from being, a woman journalist in the Turkish scene in London, to becoming a mayor.
Thank you.
You are a trailblazer.
Thank you.
But in terms of like not mum, I chose Baroness Hussein-Ece because watching her speak so, what's the right word here? Be so prominent in speaking out against, about Palestine and in support of them, despite all of the backlash that she's faced online on social media about it, and still she persists. Like, that to me is so brilliant. I adore her for that. Especially at the time, like when she was doing it, like, you know, what I say at the beginning, as if this is a new problem that's come out, but when I noticed that she was doing it, it felt like there weren't a lot of other people doing that. So yeah, she's very important, I think, for our community. So she's my role model.
Good choice.
Yeah.
I think there's some really good answers there to get the podcast started. And, you know, just to quickly say on, you know, regarding Sue, Suzanne, I remember the conversations we used to have before you decided to stand even as a candidate for councillor. And I'm so glad that you did, because, you know, public life engagement is really important, and we've got to have, you know, as many women as possible. I think women are incredible. I think they're a superior being to men, I think. You know. And I'm probably going to get pelters when this goes out for saying but I don't care, because that's true and that's my opinion. So, okay. So what I want to touch on next is kind of moving it up a level, and just talking about kind of gender equality generally here in the UK, and asking how you think it compares to other countries. I don't know who wants to have a go at responding to that one.
Well, it's a funny thing, because a little while ago I popped down to the Co-op just to get some bits and pieces, and on their in-store radio there was a little piece about gender equality, actually, and it was someone talking about International Women's Day. How advanced are we? Yeah, compared to some countries we are, but compared to others we're not. And it's something we have to keep trying to elevate women. There are a lot of women out there who hold jobs of responsibility, are policy makers, decision makers, but there's not enough of them. And those that are there often have imposter syndrome, and that's something I suffer with at times as well. So whatever we can do to redress the balance, because for a society to function properly, you need that balance. And the countries where that isn't evident, you can see that they don't prosper as they should. And that's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a great observation. Emel, I don't know if you want to share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts sort of my end. I think just linked to that, obviously, you know, there's statistics that show, say, if you're a female founder, it's more difficult for you to secure funding. I think it's something like you often receive less than 2% in venture capital funding. So there's this, even if women are aspiring for these roles, there is this glass ceiling that we need to break through. And I kind of see it as being something where we obviously need to empower women, but I think men have a part to play in being an ally on this. So it's about educating. And I say this, I'm a boy mum, so I am very alive to kind of my experiences as a child, but also thinking, well, what's the world going to look like for him, and what do I need to do to make sure that he behaves appropriately and as an ally? And that is things like housework. It's not just for women, it's a family chore, it's a task for everyone. If you see a dad taking a child to the park, that's not a dad that should be revered as being amazing. They're just doing what the other parent would be doing. Like, it's not daddy daycare, it's just daddy time. And I know they're really basic things, but it has to start at the home, and it has to start at that grassroots level, so that everyone is working towards this. Because if we empower 50% of society, then the whole of society will benefit from that.
Yeah, great points. I think, Canan, before I bring you in, I just want to quickly touch on, is it the Iceland model when they bring children up, because it is all about how children are conditioned, and with almost these preset buttons that people keep pushing, society keeps pushing, and it molds children into these what are quite frankly unhelpful stereotypes, and developing unhelpful views, certainly around gender equality, and that plays out around the whole life of a young girl growing up into a woman going into work. Because when you look at the inequality on pay, gender pay gap, we see that there's still a massive problem on gender pay gap issues. So I just wanted to throw that in. Canan, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to what your mum Emel has said.
I think Emel, I really agree with you about the education aspect. I think that's so vital, but it isn't just about children. It's also about the older generations as well. In my experience in workplaces, when you're watching different managers, male or female, dealing with instances of misogyny or sexual harassment, say, it's like completely different compared to if the manager is female or if the manager is male, and also what generation are they from and how do they react to those sorts of things. And it's just kind of frustrating to watch, because when you try and speak up, you're just sort of met with comments of, oh, they're just of their generation. And it's like, no, that isn't good enough. But then at the same time, it's like, how much training can they sit through before they actually get it into their brains? I don't know. But yeah, I think if we're sort of accelerating action and wanting to create a more equal future, we do also need to look at not just children, but educating everyone, basically, about these issues.
Yeah. And well done, John. You mentioned Accelerate Action, which is the theme this year for International Women's Day.
Do I get a gold star?
You do get a gold star. Well done. Okay. So looking around, I touched on public life engagement and generally on the point around leadership. When we look at Westminster, there's 650 elected MPs here in the UK. 220 of them are women. And I think it's the highest number since records began. You're obviously in local politics. What sort of battles do you have to contend with in your role as Mayor of Wymondham, and without putting your foot in it, and how big a problem is misogyny in politics? Because it is, we've heard Baroness Ece talk about that, but it would be great to get your take from a local perspective.
Here's the thing, because in your questions you said what issues have I had to contend with in my role of Mayoress of Wymondham. I'm not the Mayoress, I'm the Mayor, and I'm not the Chairman, I'm the Chair. And yet there are still some people in the council council chamber who, when I call on them, they'll say, "Thank you, Chairman." And I bristle when they say that, because I'm not a chairman, it's a chair. Why do you need to change that? I also got an extremely patronising email one day from someone in County Council when I had queried about a road closure. And it totally mansplained something to me. And I'm thinking, like, I don't deserve that. To face those sorts of comments from people who really ought to know better, especially if they're council officials and stuff like that. So that kind of got to me. Generally, I have to say, though, it's been relatively positive. There are instances of it. I don't say that there isn't, but I suppose it could be worse. I think there is more awareness now. But as Emel was saying, like, we need to all be on that journey together. It can't just be women elevating women. We need allies like yourself, Fevzi, who sort of say, yeah, we're on this journey with you and we can change things. So, it's only a small market town in Norfolk, a lovely market town in Norfolk. Come visit, it's great. But, it has its own challenges as well. But, you know, you're there to face them and try and make things better for everybody, really.
Yeah, and I think just in looking at it through a wider lens, if we look at sort of the judicial system, and obviously we've got a lawyer on here in Emel, but on the really horrible issue of sexual assault, if you look at the attitudes of judges within the judiciary, it's only really now that they've come out of the dark ages, because if a woman was known to have had some alcohol prior to an incident, or was dressed in a provocative way, incredibly, these were points almost regarded as relevant points in a court of law, which almost, the judge was effectively, and the person defending the person in the dock, saying that the woman basically, was contributed in some way to what happened, which is an appalling state of affairs. And it gives you an idea of how much the scales have shifted, not in favor of women, and it is coming, I think, in the right direction. And Emel, I won't ask you to comment on that, but it's, it is a really, really serious point, and you just have to look at the number of prosecutions. It's really shocking. But apologies, I have digressed from script. But what I want to come on now is just having a look over the pond in America. And if we look at the recent events and the election of that person for a second time, which is again raised eyebrows, and that's putting it very mildly.
Number 47.
Yeah.
That's what we should call him.
Yeah, he's 47, although is it still 47 because he was in before? I'm not quite sure how that works with the number.
Yeah, he's 47.
Yeah. But Canan, you've been over to America recently and share a strong interest in developments, certainly since the Republicans won the election and Trump. And we've spoken and shared concerns about what lies ahead. But for the benefit of Bandofla listeners, how do you summarize what women must be feeling right now? And you can put that in an intersectional context.
All right. This is my take on it. The last time that Trump was inaugurated in 2016, there was a huge demonstration here in London. It was the largest protest that many people had seen. I was there. I was holding a sign that said "Nasty Women of the World Unite," and there were lots of other people who'd, loads of different signs, but other people had put like the same slogan, like "Nasty Women," because that's what he said about Hillary Clinton, right, during that campaign. And it galvanized the feminist movement, against Trump. In this election, he's really gone after trans people. I think to perhaps try and get more of the support of women. But the thing that concerns me, one, obviously, as someone who is queer, you don't come after my pals, but also as someone who is a woman, like trans women and women, you don't come after my pals. But the other thing is, once you start sliding back on some rights, like for diversities, those kind of intersectional, minorities, once you start sliding back on one set of rights, you'll quickly find that the others are soon to follow like dominoes. And so when I watched the election night with my partner, who's from the US, it was hard, because it's like we're gonna have to deal with 4 years of this. It was really challenging. The other thing that's so frustrating to me, obviously, is the Nazi salutes. And the thing that I hate the most about them isn't just that they're Nazi, obviously, but it's that they're so half-hearted. And I know that sounds silly, but if you're going to do it properly. If you're going to be that much of a moron to have those beliefs, have some conviction, have some integrity, so that people can oppose you.
Mm.
Do you get what I mean?
Mm.
Sorry, that's kind of like, that's me on my little soapbox there.
Yeah, no, I think that was really, really well put. I think as well, what's really scary is the attack on abortion rights.
Yes.
Abortion rights are so important for women because surely the concept of choice has to prevail, and the pro-life brigade who, look, how difficult must that decision be for a woman who decides to have an abortion? It must be the most
Exactly.
difficult decision, and it's trivialized and weaponized by so many in the Republicans and the kind of parts of the faith movement. It's horrible, and the Wade, is it the Wade versus Roe case?
Yeah.
So it's dividing opinion, and the far right are obviously jumping on that bandwagon as well. So, but thank you, Canan, for that. Okay, so I want to come back to the UK now. So in terms of sort of the biggest challenges in achieving gender equality, what do you think we should be doing? What do you think this government should be doing to try and bring that gender equality into play in a much more positive way? Emel, aren't you? You're our resident lawyer on the show.
Well, I haven't come up with a legal answer on this. I've actually come up with something that is probably a bit more personal because it's just the phase of life that I'm in at the moment. And for me, I see the issues around childcare. In other European countries, childcare is a lot more subsidized. I believe in Germany, for example, the yearly fee is the equivalent to what some people will be paying on a monthly fee or even less in the UK. Now, I understand that it's a choice women can have a child. It's also a choice whether they return to work. Where I have difficulties with it is that you are essentially usually the woman. There are some men for whom they're the ones that then choose to stay and not go back to their career. But you are basically asking 50% of the workforce to make a choice, often on financial reasons, as to whether they go back full-time or part-time or take a career break. And it's fine until it's not, because you end up having to make choices around your life that impact immediately your own future. So it could be whether you're earning, therefore you're not generating any pension income for the future. It can impact in terms of your confidence. You can end up being de-skilled. If you do try and go back to work, a lot of employers aren't yet up and running with systems that really allow you to kind of accelerate your progression through your employment. And then it doesn't just stop there. Once your child is at school, we have a system where you have maybe 4 to 6 weeks annual leave if you work for someone, but school holidays are 13 weeks. And that's a hell of a juggle for family units, however they look, to have to put up with. You're kind of being told, well, we want women to be independent, but only independent until and then that they choose to have a child. Then they have to kind of wrestle with their identity and make choices that aren't necessarily what they would want to do, but they're motivated by external factors.
Yeah, I think that's such a brilliant example, a classic example of, highlighting gender inequality. I think the laws around flexible working in the UK I do employment law for a trade union, and the flexible working laws wind me up. They're in the right to request to work flexibly. I mean, who wants a right to request it? A woman having a baby should have the right to work flexibly. It really winds me up. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. Steve, listen, you're Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. What would you do to...
Did that happen?
Congratulations.
I didn't campaign or anything.
For the purposes of this episode, I shall qualify. What would you do to kind of try to address gender inequality?
think Emel has hit the nail on the head, to be honest, because in the current modern age, it's very often that you need two incomes to keep a family going, to run a household. So the fact that you're asking, by and large, women to sort of still work sort of full time, but not being able to afford childcare and stuff like that, surely this puts us at a massive disadvantage. I'm encouraged when Emel says that she'd like to raise her boy to realise that housework isn't just for women, and it's everyone should get involved and to play their part as well. But we all know families that maybe they have two working parents. When the mum goes home, her work isn't done. She's then doing the cooking, the washing, putting the kids to bed, and all the rest of it. So if you can find, sorry, if I'm Prime Minister, I can find some way of leveling the playing field, as it were, because kids need parents that are going to interact with them and look after them and all the rest of it. But if one is permanently, tired because she's also doing another job as well, that's just not fair, isn't it? We've got to find a better way of operating.
Yeah. Just remember, if you do ever get to the PM position, if you ever need an advisor,
I shall call you on. You'll be on speed dial, Fevzi.
Okay, so I think it's one of the things we should be talking about on this episode is looking back in history and seeing what single episode involving a woman stands out for you, and why. Canan, I'm going to start with you.
What a difficult question you've thrown our way. How do you choose just one? As someone who is obsessed with politics, I think I'm going to have to go with the suffrage movement. And I think someone who really stands out to me in the suffrage kind of campaign maybe isn't the main contender that people normally think of, and it's actually the nurse Edith Cavell, who was working in Brussels when the First World War broke out, continued working there, looking after British soldiers, and then ended up looking after German soldiers after the hospital fell into their hands, but was found to be helping British soldiers escape, and so she was court-martialed and found to be guilty of treason, and eventually was executed by firing squad. And there was this whole international outrage about it. Like, it's a woman, it's a nurse. How on earth can you do this? But it's but it's the law. It's a war, and they didn't know how to deal with it. And her funeral was, when you see pictures of it in Trafalgar Square, just how many people there were in 1915 who turned out for it. It was a huge moment for the suffrage campaign, because it really highlighted to men, like, here's a professional woman who got caught in all of this stuff. So she kind of became a bit of a martyr, I suppose, for the suffrage movement. But one of my favorite things about her, sorry, I am wrapping up, I promise. One of her last letters, she wrote, patriotism is not enough. I must have no hatred or bitterness towards anyone. And I just think, as a woman, like, if you had more female leaders with that kind of attitude, how different would the world stage look? Having no hatred or bitterness towards anyone and just wanting to carry on and get things done. So yeah, I think that's who I would choose in that kind of moment of how things started to change. That was a long answer, sorry.
No, great answer. Emel, come to you, and then I'll come to you, Sue. So start thinking.
Canan, thank you for that. I've actually learned something new, and I'm inspired to go and read about her. So on the kind of similar vein of a woman who began change, for me, I decided upon Rosa Parks. So her refusing to give up her seat in the bus so that a white person could sit in the, as it was described then, coloured area because the white area was full, and sparking the civil rights movement. I mean, that one moment of courage to then essentially galvanise and inspire other people, and to think that was only 1955. So really, we're 70 years ago. It's really not that long ago that women were having to fight for these issues, and it's all the more of a reminder just how easily those rights can kind of ebb and flow as people like President number 47 come in, and just how much we have to kind of hold on to what we have and not take it for granted.
Yeah, great answer, Emel. And that obviously, for those who aren't aware, sparked the Bristol bus boycott here in the UK, you know, because there were similar issues with racism. So yeah, great answer. Sue, what about you?
Well, as John had already said, and Emel alluded to, like to narrow it down to just one person is, you know, almost impossible. But I have to say that I'm inspired by someone like Sally Ride, who was the first woman US astronaut to go into space. As you know, I like spacey stuff, so that's very you know, she's a real real trailblazer, and she was also the first LGBT person in space as well, as far as we know. So someone like that. Also, if you've seen the movie Hidden Figures, where Black women were so instrumental in NASA's development and whatever, and a part of history that's overlooked, you know, these phenomenal women, you know, helped NASA progress, and they were overlooked, and we didn't know this story until this movie came along. So I think women working in those sorts of industries, they push the boundaries, literally push the boundaries, and I admire them so much. But any woman that's prepared to stand up and make a stand, say like Rosa Parks, yeah, absolutely, 100% behind them. And Edith Cavell, who was from Norfolk, by the way. But anyway.
You had to get that in there, didn't you?
I had to get it in.
Yeah, do you know, I mean, just on the point of inspirational women, in much more recent times, was she a pastor or a priest who spoke directly to Donald Trump shortly after he was inaugurated. I thought she was incredibly brave, and that speech will probably go down in history and be remembered for many, many years to come. Her name escapes me, unfortunately, but people watching will know who I'm talking about. I'm glad we've given a bit of an international flavour to International Women's Day. It's very appropriate. And we're coming to the end of this particular podcast, and we're going to have more international flavour with this next question. Emel, given your background with Embargoed, the human rights group, and obviously we've all got very fond memories of our engagement with Embargoed and the brilliant work that we did collectively. I want to bring an international flavour to this discussion by asking you that Cyprus has been deadlocked as a political stalemate for over 60 years now. And never in this period, as far as I'm aware, has women from either side led those negotiations. So my question is, do you think that testosterone has been the barrier to unlocking the Cyprus problem, Emel?
I mean, that's one hell of a question. I mean, I think we have to start by saying the Cyprus problem is obviously a really complicated issue. It's something that resonates with all of us, given our Turkish Cypriot heritage. And I also think it's really important that we reiterate that it's a political stalemate going over 60 years. So it stemmed from troubles in the 1950s to the Republic of Cyprus, essentially the power structure that was put in place in 1960 falling apart in 1963. And then you've obviously got the division of the island in 1974. And the reason why I say this is because I know for some people when they listen to this, everything started in 1974, and that's not necessarily a perspective that everyone would share. But going back to your question, I would look at it, I'd rather look at it like this. Rather than saying, have men cause, you know, is it their testosterone? I would like to say, well, what's the harm in having women have a go? We've had 60 years of male leaders at the table, and it is really complicated. And you know, even just this week, we've had Tahsin Ertuğrul, who is the foreign minister of the TRNC, visit London and essentially say, from the Turkish Cypriot perspective, that at the moment there is no common ground between the two sides. So quite how a woman coming into this scenario would resolve that, I can't say. But what I can say is that I think women, when you look at how they lead, if they lead from a very kind of feminine space, often do so looking to bring everyone along with them for the journey. So it's not about saying, I'm going to win at all costs, so you walk away feeling that you've lost. You know, it's not a competitive sport. It's not a football match where you want to get the most goals scored. Often when you look at women, they will be trying to negotiate and make sure everyone reaches a consensus, because, and it's really as basic as when you look at their role within a family unit, be it as a mother, a daughter, a sister, a spouse, a friend, they're often the ones juggling everyone's viewpoint to try and find a way forward within that. And I just think that women have so many skills that we just don't tap into, because often we are engaging in parameters that have been set by men and in a way that perhaps doesn't suit. You know, having people conduct negotiations in a stuffy room where people get very heated, why don't they go outside for a walk? I know that's really basic, but we need blue sky thinking. The Cyprus issue is so complicated. We need people to kind of try and approach it from a different angle, because what we've done so far has brought us to this point. Let's try something different.
Very diplomatically put, Emel. I mean, there might be a little bit of a flippant angle to the question, but you know, in all seriousness, you know, I've worked in a trade union movement for almost 40 years, and it's been very male orientated, male dominated environment, and the dynamics in a room when women lead on negotiations and discussions are very, very different. And I just think in a Cyprus context, I genuinely feel that, you know, let's say for argument's sake, Baroness Emel, Hussein-Ece, Suzanne, Nuri, Nixon, and İpek Özelim, you know, three esteemed people in our community, were the main negotiating team for Turkish Cypriots, and there was women counterparts on the Greek Cypriot side. The dynamics would be different. I'm telling you that now. There wouldn't be this kind of male bravado. But anyway, so Canan, what's your thoughts on
that? The thing that I was thinking of as you mentioned those three names of Baroness Hussein-Ece and Suzanne and İpek, was just thinking about your first question about role models again, because I just thought to I mean, I saw your reaction to that of, why on earth do you think that I would be able to do that? And you know, I spoke earlier about imposter syndrome. And the thing about role models is that, I mean, Emel, you said that your mom is your role model, and I said that you're my role model. I don't think that either of our mums go around thinking I'm that person's role model. And you're probably like, Emel, you're probably someone's role model and you don't even realize it. And I don't want to sound big-headed when I say this, like I'm being very womanly saying this, like, oh no, like I can't put my head above the parapet, but you know, we are role models without even realizing it. But that's one of the challenges that we face, right? Is that big imposter syndrome. So you have to get to a point where you've got enough women in politics to even get to those positions, to even have these questions of what would it be like? Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I just wanted to link back to that role models thing, because I think that's so important. Like we don't think that we always downplay our successes, and we don't think we're worthy, and we are.
Yeah, I go along with that. The Cyprus problem, if you want to call it that, started in 63. If you want to go to 63, that was the year I was born. This is how old this problem is. In 2013, Sibel came along as a temporary prime minister, didn't she? And there was a slight movement. There was something that started happening. And I thought, this is encouraging. And then what happened? I think probably elections came along and she got swept away. And I thought, why in all that time have there been no women? We all know strong Turkish Cypriot women. Why haven't they come to the table? We know that they can work, or we can work more collaboratively. We want to have consensus, Emel, as you say. We want everyone to be on that journey with us. It's not about being alpha male, and it's not about banging your hand on the table and saying it's this way or no way. You know, in the style of Number 47, that isn't how we should work. And yet, after 60 years, 61 years, there is still no prospect, is there, of women coming to the negotiating table. And that breaks my heart, because we come from such a beautiful place. We have such a rich heritage. Why are we still enduring these problems, these issues? You know, why are young generations over there still sort of struggling with stuff? Why are we still ostracized when it comes to the world order? So yeah, maybe if they tried something differently, is it not Einstein? Who was it who said if you keep doing something and it keeps failing, it's
That was Einstein.
definition of stupidity or something like that?
Madness.
Madness. Yeah, well, you get my drift, don't you? Why don't we try something different? So I'm waiting for that person to come along.
Yeah, I think
it's not me.
There's going to be a lot of people watching this in Cyprus. So, you know, whilst there is a slightly flippant angle to it, there's also a very, very serious angle to it. And I would like to see change. Don't like using a Labour slogan, but you know, we do need change when it comes to Cyprus to bring.
Well, let me just say this, Fevzi. The leader of Enfield Council was a woman. She's now an MP. The leader of Haringey Council is a woman. All right, I'm the mayor of a little Norfolk town, but I'm still there doing that. Where are they in Cyprus doing that? Where are the women? Where are they hiding? Why aren't they at the table?
Yeah, no, definitely, and the likes of you know, Perai and Nesil, you know, and Meral Hanım are leading the way and showing, you know, that it can be done. So, okay, my lovely sisters, we've come to the end of this special special podcast, International Women's Day edition. I hope viewers have enjoyed the discussion. I think there's been some really wonderful points put forward. I want to extend a very warm thank you to Emel, Djevdet, and to Suzanne and Canan, Nuri for joining me on this episode. Thank you very much, ladies.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having us.
So
yeah.
So we're not on Twitter anymore, right? Because of a certain person acting like an Egypt. And I'm trying to remember my Blue Sky address.
Oh no.
For those of you who want to follow Bandofla on Blue Sky, it's at bandofla.bsky.social. Okay. And you can catch up with our episodes. We've got lots of historic material on Spotify, and quite a few episodes on YouTube, and this will be going onto YouTube and hopefully Spotify as well, hopefully within the next 24 hours. So a happy International Women's Day to everyone watching. Big love and solidarity to all the sisters out there. You've been watching Bandofla. My name is Fevzi Hussein. Thank you again to our guests, Suzanne, Canan and Emel. Goodbye, everyone.